Hello everybody, my name is Mr. McNasty, and today I'm going to tell the gaming legend right here my trip to the West Virginia Moundsville State Penitentiary. I actually kind of went today, so it was pretty cool. Okay, so where should I start out at? Okay, so what did you do? What did you do? Stay away from the fire. But okay, so whenever we were walking in, there was the wardens. Stand over next to the fire so the camera can see you. But the wardens made one of the inmates build the electric chair. They called it Old Sparky, alright? So he made it because he was a carpenter. He made it, and a lot of the inmates were happy about that because they had to get the electric chair. So they made him get the electric chair. He was the first person in the penitentiary to use it. Alright? He was killed in it. And whenever the first thing that they showed us there was where the visitation was. Now, there weren't any phones in there. Keep in mind, this place is decommissioned and old. It was decommissioned in 1995, and there was I'll get to why it was decommissioned, but I was in there and we sat in the visitation where the inmates sat so they could go and talk to people, and all that they could see was a little one by 1 foot piece of glass, thick glass. I'd say it had to be at least 2 inches wide. And this lady stop it. And this lady that was giving the tour and everything, yeah, the tour guide. Crap, I'm gonna idle. But this lady, she was real nice. All right, so she acted like she knew every single prisoner personally. I'm not sure if she worked there or not whenever it was still in commission, but my god, was this place scary. She took us into a cafeteria, you know? And this was where, like, the mild people went. Like, the people that would behave themselves went, and the behaved murderers, you know? And and this place, like, they would let some of the inmates draw on the walls. There was this really nice picture that one of the inmates drew. It was a pickup truck with all this. I know that I have a heist ready, but a couple of these guys were one of the guys were colorblind, just like you, but like, he needed help with, like, drawing stuff, I guess, because he didn't know what color to use or anything. Well, that's about it. So, where are we gonna go to next? Okay, so then we went to the like, yard where they got to go outside. They got to play basketball and everything. So they said that if it was a rainy day, most of the inmates would just stay inside in their halls because they weren't allowed in their cells at any time, except for at night. So if it was raining, they weren't allowed to go outside. So they had almost 300 people in a hallway that was probably I don't know how long it was, probably about 10 yards wide. And keep in mind, there were a lot of inmates here. So there were, I forget how many she told us that there were, but they had to pack at least 300 people from that cell block into a hallway, and they could only stay on one side of a red line. And next to those cells were, what were they? They were like about 5 yards wide, 3 shower heads, and the guard that was controlling the water, if he was mad at you, either the water was super cold or scalding hot. Sometimes he'd even wait until they got all lathered up and then shut the water off so they couldn't get all the soap off of them. But it was hot, and keep in mind, today was cold. It was raining, and it was hot in those prison cells, and there were about 4 stories of those cells. So the people that were on top, oh my god, that would have been terrible to be in there. Okay, so where are we going now? So the wagon shed. This is where they would do most of the executions. I think that they called it the death room. Yeah. And what they did was they would have like people executed in there by hanging. And one person, he was a real big dude, real heavy, and the lady said his neck muscles weren't too strong, so he had to climb up 40 steps, and whenever he got up there, he put his head in the noose. They dropped him down, head right off. And there were a lot of people, probably about 300 people, and they would pay $18 each for a ticket just to go and watch someone die. And whenever we were in there, she told us that was the last execution that anybody ever saw. They weren't allowed to go and see it anymore because of that. Yeah, it was pretty freaking gnarly. She's like, it kind of got messy right there. I was like, well, yeah. Okay. So now that we're gone, we're going into the bad side of the prison. The gang territory, alright? So, there were 2 gang rivalries. There was, why is this shaking? But some of these people were, wait a second, but some of these people were in the Aryan Brotherhood, which was the roughest and most terrible gang that was there. And then there were the Avengers, the Aryan Brotherhood. And no, it's not Saints Row, but it was the Aryan Brotherhood and the Avengers, and it was 2 gang rivalries. Alright, so whenever like there were 4 of the leaders in one cell block: Red, White, Blue, and Rusty. So they had one of these people from the Avengers. They drug him out into the cafeteria, and they had a makeshift shank, alright? And it was a fence wire and tape wrapped around it. They shoved it straight through that guy's eye, came right back out the back of his skull. And nobody went and helped him. Nobody went to go and help him because they just stood there and waited for him to bleed out behind the cafeteria table. Alright, so, the good side of the prison. The people that would actually behave themselves, some of them got on parole for a little while, then came straight back in the very next day. And, so the people that would end up in there for parole, they got to do whatever they wanted, really. They could go in and out of their cells whenever they wanted. They could go outside into the the courtyard, and they even let, like, a long time ago, they even let the inmates play with the kids. Like, they would go and play baseball, football with the kids, which I don't know why they would, because they were murderers. And like, that's just about it. Like, there were crazy things. My dad even went into a cell, and he got to sit in there and lock in. Honestly, the cell was about the length of a queen-size bed, about that wide. And they said that they had to pack at least 4 people into each of those cells, with only 2 beds. So, basically, the beds were mesh. Metal mesh. Alright? So, the people that were in the cells, either they were on the top bunk or the lower bunk. And they would usually, like, take turns sleeping in there. So, what they did was either you could sleep at the side where the bars were, or the toilet. So, basically, if you had your head at the bars, someone could come by with a shank and just stab you in the head while you were sleeping. So, I would not like to be in there. And they had to put mesh up over the cell doors, just because one of the inmates, they got a broomstick, and one of the guards walked up there. That inmate just shoved it straight through where the bars were, shoved it right in his mouth, and went right back out the other side of his head. A broomstick. Oh my god. I don't even know why they would... It makes me sick. But, some of the stuff that they were, like, smuggled into the place were, like, shanks, like, like, they would get, like, floss, like, dental floss, and then they would have, like, hardened toothpaste on them, and they would just wrap it around their fingers, and they would cut out little pieces of the locking mechanism, and they would make their shanks out of that, and then they would sharpen it on the cell's concrete floor, and then they would go and, like, stab people. Like, it was probably mostly the gangs that would do that. But where are you going? And there were these things called head knockers, alright? Where are you going? There were these things called head knockers, alright? It was usually a sock and a piece of wood, just a solid piece of wood, and they would put it in a sock. They would go up and knock people in the back of the head with it and kill them. Another one of those, there were brass knuckles, and it was a bike chain with tape on them. So, like, they would just go up and punch them, and they'd basically die. There were some of these people that were, like, seriously, like, the guards wouldn't help these people that were in the bad side of the prison if they were being attacked or anything. So